not an awards assembly, but simply a recognition. 259 athletes have been practicing through the whole fall season. It started as early as August the 15th while everybody else was on vacation, and participated in what I classify a very successful season, not by record, but by participation. And mainly, I mention this because I'm more proud of this than anything else, our image is carried further and more often throughout schools in the state of Pennsylvania through the guise of sports. And our athletes carry our pride, our sportsmanship, and our spirit to these other schools, and I'm proud of the way our fall athletes have handled themselves in that respect. Now, first off, I'd like to recognize, and they are not in a classification of championship caliber simply because we don't have championships in the freshman area. But at this time, I'd like to recognize, number one, the freshman football team, whose record was 6-2, coached by Mr. Pyle and Mr. Ponton. Could the freshman players please rise for a moment? All the freshman football team. Come on, stand up. Be proud. Also, the freshman hockey team, who had a record of 3-4-1 this year and is building, and I expect them to get better and better each year. Coached by Joyce Cresswell. Would the freshman hockey team please stand? Come on, let's go. Thank you. And last but not least, the freshman soccer, coached by Mr. Rohrbach. Their record was unblemished, but they are building too, and we have some future stars coming up. How about the soccer freshmen standing up, please? I only spotted about 6 of them, but I guess they're here. Now, without any further ado, I want to mention one more thing. We did say 259 participants, grades 9 through 12. Our overall record was 46 wins, 96 losses, and 10 ties. As I said, records aren't that important. It's the idea of all of these kids participating as they did. First off, I'd like to call Mr. Roman up here, and he will recognize his team and give any distinguished honors that have been given. And he was the soccer coach. Mr. Roman.
This is my first year coaching the soccer team, and I really didn't realize how difficult it was going to be. We play a very, very difficult league, and all the teams that we play against have greater numbers and probably greater skills than we have. However, one thing that really made me feel good is that especially the JV team started from a very, very low level, and really due to Coach Blackman, got those kids playing. They played tough, they played hard, and they played really far above the level that I thought they were able to play. And I'd like to acknowledge them, the JV soccer players. Can they stand up, please? JV soccer players. Coach Blackman. The JV team played with a lot of enthusiasm and a lot of courage, and it's easy to win and participate and play. I mean, when you're winning games, but when you're losing and you're losing to tough teams, to come back every game and play tough, that takes a lot of credit, and they played well. I hope all the JV players come back next year. And if they make the varsity or not, I'd like to have everyone on the squad because they really played well. I'd also like to invite all the 9th graders to make sure they come out for the team, because one of our biggest problems this year was just simply not enough players. We played our first 3 games with 13 varsity players. You may or may not know there's 11 players on the team, so we had 2 subs. And we played the entire season without a backup goaltender. We're advertising for a backup goaltender. The JV team had 15 or 16 players, and 3 of those kids were 9th graders who we were forced to bring up, and they played very well, incidentally, to the JV team. So our biggest problem as I see it, is just simply lack of players. So anybody who wants to play soccer and have a good time and play competitively would really like to see you out next year. One thing we were able to accomplish, we were able to reduce our goals against by 1/3, from 64 to 44. And we also scored more goals. So I feel that we'll be more competitive next year. I don't know whether we're going to win any more games. I really hope we do, because it's always much more fun to win than to lose. But we finished the year with a banquet at Collegeville Inn, and one of the nicest things about the banquet was that we had, I think, almost 95% attendance. All the kids were there, and most of the parents. And I hope we have another equally good year next year. Thank you very much.
The varsity and JV hockey teams, coached by Mrs. Flacco and Miss Victor, are to be recognized now. Mrs. Flacco and Miss Victor could not make it here, so would the JV and varsity hockey squads please rise? Come on. Now just stay up there, please. I want to point out that the following people we have in Suburban 1 what we call an all-conference team, all-league team, and they are voted on by the coaches. And it is a very high honor to be elected to one of these positions. The following people on the hockey team have been elected to positions. Kathy Panos, Suburban 1, second team. Would you please stand, Kathy? Liz Stasic, Suburban 1, second team. I hope you're standing. My eyes don't move fast enough to catch you, but I hope you're standing up, because you should be proud. Debbie Stevens, Suburban 1, honorable mention. Renee Tomzak, Suburban 1, honorable mention. And again, this is a team that's building, so I expect a lot in the future from them, and they need players too. It seems like when we go from middle school up here, a lot of students decide there's other avenues to pursue, but we'd like to see you out on the athletic fields. Now I'd like to introduce someone who is new to a lot of you. He's the coach of our cross-country team, and he's now coaching the winter track, and will be coaching spring track, and we're expecting an awful lot out of this gentleman, Mr. Larry Simmons.
Thank you. This is my first year here at Norristown High School, and I consider it a very proud moment for me to be here. Whether you know it or not, one of the most famous high schools in the country is Norristown. Anywhere you go, you mention Norristown, and they immediately recognize it. Matter of fact, your high school can be recognized a lot easier than some of the smaller colleges. We had a pretty good season this year, and I'd first like to recognize our JV. And each member of the JV team did an outstanding job and will most likely move up to varsity next year. Now, as I call your name, I'd like for you to stand up. Tyrone Baker. Aaron Brown. Carlos Brown. Glenn Butler. Robert Graham. Dave Roseborough. And Derek Williams. Now, just to mention something on the last gentleman, Derek Williams, Derek just missed making varsity as a freshman and could have made varsity cross-country, indoor and outdoor. However, Derek is a very outstanding athlete, but we're expecting a lot of great things from him. This summer, Derek he placed in the Junior Olympics. He jumped over 18 feet in the long jump and produced one of the most outstanding jumps in this area. Now, moving on to our varsity, and as I call your name, I'd like for you to stand up. This young man ran as our 5th man most of the year and was very consistent. And he did a very, very outstanding job, and he improved his time from the beginning of the season by over 3 minutes to the end of the season. Ty Jackson. The next young man, every time we went to a cross-country race, as soon as the gun went off, he would jump to the back. So I kept telling him, you got to move up to the front. He kept telling me, Coach, I know what I'm doing. So the gun would go off, and by the time the race was over, he would catch over half of the runners in the race. And this was freshman Robbie Ortliff. The next young man, which is Pat McNeil, broke the school record. The next young man, can you hear me now? The next young man is Pat McNeil, who broke the school record on some of the courses that we ran for sophomores. Was very consistent, also did an outstanding job. Pat McNeil, will you stand, please? At the end of the season, Don Cesura had moved up to our number 3 spot and missed making the all-conference honorable mention team by just 2 places. Will Don stand up? The next young man I'd like to recognize, and most of you know him, during the year, every time we'd have a workout, he would run with a straw in his mouth. And I'd tell him, look, you got to take that straw out. I said, what's that straw for? He said, well, this is when we're going to, I'm not even going to mention. Anyway, some kind of way he was able to run with a straw in his mouth. This was his first year cross country. He took it very calmly, came out, ran the workouts, let me know when we went to a race. He says, I'll do all right. And that he did. He made Suburban 1 all-conference first team. That's Stan Hadrick. Come on up. Stan, you have to come up front. He's moving pretty slow now, as Mr. Hortler said. No straw, but he's still pretty cool, though. We'll go along with it. Let's go. All right, the next young man I'd like to introduce had an outstanding year. Before the season, when we started the first race, I said, how do you think you'll do this year? He says, I'll do okay. He says, I probably won't lose the race. Confidence, isn't it? He went undefeated through his dual and tri meets. He always placed in the top 3 at least in our invitationals. He won our own invitational here at the school. He placed 2nd in the district, was named to the Suburban 1 All-League first team. He was named to the All-State team. And he's also started off a good year for indoor track. That's Pompey Wellens. So come up. If you don't mind, could you give Pompey another hand? He walked a long way because he wanted to get more of applause. Nice going. Pompey, how you going to do an indoor track?
First.
Nice going. I'd just like to again thank the members of the team for the boys JV and the varsity team for an outstanding job, and they followed through. I'd like to quickly introduce the girls cross-country team, the entire team. They had a very outstanding season. Couldn't win any meets, but they did very well. Is Deborah Manning here? Stand up, Deborah. Deborah was number 1, number 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and 7. She was the entire team. She did it all alone. Hopefully next year, we're going to have more girls to join her. But she did an outstanding job, and I'd like to thank her. And she's also, if you've heard on the announcements, started out very well for indoor track. Thanks again. Okay.
If you think this is being rushed, each coach has a paper like this, and they were all given 3 minutes to do their thing. The next, we go back to the distaff side here. Girls tennis, Mr. Mervis.
After that last speech, I've got 30 seconds. The girls' tennis team, I'm glad they said winning wasn't everything. They had one of those years where they sort of want to forget it. But I give them a lot of credit. They worked really hard. They put in an awful lot of time, and the improvement they showed was fantastic. A classic example is our #1 singles player started playing doubles last year, played doubles all through the year, came back this year, went from playing doubles to becoming team captain and playing #1. She won the first #1 singles match by any girl in the last 2 years. And I think she deserves a lot of credit, and I'd like her to stand and take some credit for this. It's Mary Beth Roman. Now, as I call the name of the rest of the team, again, did exceptionally well. They worked really hard. It was women by a group of people. Some of them have never played before. It was the first time they had seen any type of real athletic competition. And as I call the rest of the names of the girls, would they please stand? Also playing singles for me, and as a returning senior, she played quite well over the last years, and I'd like to give her some credit, was Kim Rigg. Dee Benny. Michelle Ciccarone. Chris Saladino, Mary Beth Whalen, Lori Schlatzauer, Amy Golden, who played fantastic doubles for us, Tina Russo, Kelly Pearson, who started playing singles for us this year, did exceptionally well as a 10th grader, and I expect to see a lot from her next year, Christy Chesnick, who came out, again, her first year, played exceptionally well playing doubles. Chrissy Rigg, Jennifer Franzone, Abby Coles, and Denise Reichwein. I'd like to see a lot more people out next year. We start practice middle of August. It's nice, sunny, great way to get a tan. And again, ladies, I really want to thank you. It was a hard season. It was a long season. I want to thank you for your effort. Thank you.
Now to recognize our football team, the head coach, Mr. Roger Grove.
Thank you. As a football team, we finished the season with a record of 22 wins and 7 defeats. Our 10th grade team was 6-2, our JV team was 9-1, and our varsity team was 7-4. Some of the highlights of this past football season obviously was our opening win against Bishop Kenrick with a score of 39-0, which with this year being a little special because the first year they presented a trophy for the community trophy they call for the winner of the game, and you know it's always nice to win that first trophy, and it was our 6th consecutive win over Kenrick. The following week, we beat Plymouth White Marsh, following up with Wilson, Truman, Pennsbury, Bensound, Neshaminy for wins. So as a football team, and I'm sure a lot of you are aware of some of the problems that we did have this year with a couple situations, we feel that we accomplished a lot, we came through a lot, and we had a very successful season. I want to now introduce the coaches and then introduce the seniors to you. First of all, the coaches are spread out through the auditorium here. Over here, Jack Riffis, who is our line coach. Coach Everett's back there standing, who coaches our defense. Coach Giovinco, who's upstairs somewhere, who coaches our offensive backs. Coach Pirantozzi, who's not here today, he's absent. And Coach Schmidt, who coaches our linebackers and defensive line, who also isn't here today. I'd like at this time to introduce the senior members of our football team, and what I'll do is I'm going to read them out. If they would just stand and remain standing, and then you can give your applause at the end. This group that I'm going to read to you of seniors, 26, has obviously over the past 3 years had a very successful career. In the 3 years they've been with us, they've won over 30 football games, if you count some of them being on the sophomore team, some being on the JV team. And you know, when you figure that out, that's a heck of an accomplishment. They've been involved with the championship race all 3 years they've been here. Unfortunately, they only have one championship for it, but certainly one's better than none. But all 3 years they were involved with teams that competed for championships. So I'm going to call them out, and I'd appreciate if they'd stand up. First of all, Chris Augustine, Carmen Bello, Chuck Bittner, Gary Butler, Roland Carbone, Delbert Chavou, Greg Chavou, Jeff Denner, Wayne Denson, Dave Elsier, Jeff Harder, Mike McHenry, Rich Mitchell, Pat Pearson, Lewis Simpson, Mike Sloan, Royce Suber, Joe Trump, Ricky Waldrop, Andy Ward, Matt Weber, Lonnie Williams, Dave Corlori, Dwayne Jones, John Cabot, and our manager, Carlos Pryor. I think they deserve a nice round of applause. Along with that this year, something that we were very proud of, throughout the first 7 weeks of the season, we were considered the #2 rated team. That's obviously supposed to be the second best team in the Delaware Valley, which comprises over 150 schools, and we were ranked in the top 5 in the state of Pennsylvania as a high school football team. So again, that's something they should be very, very proud of. I want to now introduce to you some of the award winners that we had this year. On our all honorable mention list, all league, the following people made honorable mention: John Cabot, Ricky Waldrop, Carmen Bello, Lou Simpson, and Theron Ellis. Picked as second team players were Joe Trump, Dave Elsier, Jaquez Rochette. Picked as all-league first team, if they would come up here now, I want to give them their award, was Chris Augustine and Dalbert Chaville. Congratulations, Chris. Take it home with you. Along with that, I should also mention that the Philadelphia Inquirer has what they call an all-area team, and we were honored this year with Dalbert making the first team along with Wayne Denson. Now I want to call up an individual who accomplished a lot this year, no question about it, and I'll call him up, and as he's coming up, I'll read some of the things that he accomplished, and that individual is Wayne Denson. Wayne made the All-State first team, both UPI and API. He made the All-Inquirer team. And the highest award that you can receive as a football player He's reading it now. The highest award that you can receive as a football player, and believe me when I say it's tough, they pick 50 in the United States. Okay, 50 players out of I don't know how many thousand, is to be named to the Parade All-American team. Now, we are fortunate and very proud of this, to say that this is the third person that we've had selected for this. Steve Bona, who many of you saw in the Rose Bowl, Jeff Reinhardt, who's at the University of Arizona, and now Wayne are the three people that we've had, and probably more than any other school that I know of maybe in the United States in the past 5 years, to have three players make this team. It's a heck of an accomplishment. And he has been named to both the parade and what's called the Bally, which some of you might have seen on television. They featured on many of the shows over the weekends, over the Christmas holidays, as the Bally All-American football team. So I think he deserves a great round of applause for that. Congratulations. In closing, I would just like to thank you as a student body. I thank the faculty, the administration, especially Mr. Spencer, our principal, and Mr. Ortlib, for the support that you gave us throughout the year. There's no greater feeling, and I tell this to every football player, and I'm just going to use the one game as an example. Every kid in America should experience what it is to play in front of 10,000 people on Thanksgiving Day. There are, like somebody mentioned earlier, a lot of small colleges don't have that happening. And I want to thank you and the community and the faculty and everybody involved for all the support that you give us throughout the year. Thank you very much.
Now, the last team to be recognized will be golf and their coach, Mr. Charles Fulham.
The 1983 golf team featured 4 returning lettermen from the 1982 season. They were seniors Jim Sayer, Joe Franzone, and Vance Kincaid, and along with sophomore Tom Kilcoyne. The remaining 2 positions on the team were filled by sophomores Tommy Moore and freshman Brian Shuchuk. Sean Fletcher, also a sophomore, started 4 matches. Rounding out this year's team were sophomores Felix Raimondo, sophomores Mark Dubner, along with freshmen Mike Rapogel and Andy Heimbach. Would all those young men please stand? Let's give them a round. The team this year was led in scoring by Tom Kilcoyne, who won 7 matches and only lost 4 matches and had 1 tie. He scored 23.5 points to his opponent's 12.5 points, while playing in as our number 2 man all year. Second in scoring were Captain Jim Sayer and Tommy Moore, who played number 5. Jim played number 1. Each scored 19 points against their opponent's 17, and each compiled a 6-win, 6-loss record. Jim Sayer also had an outstanding individual performance in the Suburban 1 tournament by placing 5th. Now, because of their outstanding play this year, Jim Sayer and Tom Kilcoyne have been voted 2nd team All-League. Will those 2 gentlemen please stand? Let's give them a round of a hand. My feelings on this year's team was that I had 11 very dedicated and very dependable members of the team. We didn't win any championships, and we didn't have a winning season, but sometimes I think there's more to competition than that. We were very competitive against even the toughest teams in the league this year. So myself, I would like to thank the 11 young men that I had on the team, and I sincerely feel that this was one of the most enjoyable years I've had as a coach. Thank you very much.
Now, the faculty manager, Ms. Tompkins, will present the N Club awards to the individual from each group. We no longer have an N Club in existence, but we have carried on the award. Ms. Tompkins?
Thank you. First of all, let me say, I'm sure it was just a chauvinistic slip by Mr. Ortlip, but not only do the guys represent us throughout the state, but the girls also represent us throughout the state. Having two daughters on the state championship team, I'm sure Mr. Ortlip can attest to that fact. My role in athletics is usually one of hassling the coaches to get their eligibility information slips in, and also collecting teachers' eligibility slips. By the way, teachers, there's still some of them out there, please. And collecting the academic eligibility. It is a pleasure for me to be involved with the athletes that have achieved an outstanding performance in their season. These athletes that I'm going to mention right now have been voted by their coaches as the N Club Award recipients. When I call your name, would you please come up to the stage and try to take the shortest route? My first recipient, I'm not going to say very much about each one of the athletes because most of them have already been mentioned by their coaches. The only thing I'd like to say about the first athlete is I know him as Chicken Legs, you know him as Pompey, but on the N Club Award he's known now as Pumpy Wellens. Pompey Wellens, N Club Award for cross country. Our next N Club recipient is Karen Davis from the hockey team. Our next N Club recipient for the soccer team, Bill Werkheiser. It seems like we've had Werkheisers playing for Norristown for some time. His dad graduated from Norristown, and he's had quite a few. His brother graduated, sister. That's awesome. Our next N Club Award recipient could not be here today. He's at home suffering from a 103-degree temperature, and that's Dave Elsier for football. The next N Club Award winner for golf, Jim Sayre. And last but not least, our N Club Award winner for girls tennis, Mary Beth Roman. George, you want me to move on to this or get the garage? Let me just say in closing, I might like to add that most of these players were also team captains, which is an indication of their leadership abilities, and most of these players were outstanding students as well as athletes. Mary Beth herself is in 3 lab courses, which is in itself a good feat. Thank you very much.
It's not a chauvinistic slip. The men all stayed within her 3 minutes. The one woman took longer than she was supposed to. We're running late. We're running late. I'd like to introduce to you two guests we have here today. I'm going to introduce the first gentleman. He will take care of the other introductions. Mr. Bob Ryan. You're not going to miss any lunch. We have that all set up. Mr. Bob Ryan from the Philadelphia Stars.
Thank you. I'd like to thank the members of the faculty and George and Roger for allowing us, the Philadelphia Stars, who are members of the United States Football League, to be a part of this presentation this morning. And without any further ado, I'd like to present to all of you Eagles, a former Eagle himself and now a member of the Philadelphia Stars office, a fine athlete in his own right, Mr. Vince Papale, please.
Thank you. Wow, this is great. Fantastic. I only have about 2 minutes, so give me my time. I guess the first thing I've got to do, I'm an old school teacher. I happen to play a little football for the Philadelphia Eagles with Dick Vermeil starting back in 1976, and to show you how smart I was, I retired in '80. That was the year that the Eagles went to the Super Bowl. I didn't get there, but I taught a little bit of school. I taught down at Interboro High School. I actually had the opportunity to compete at Roosevelt Field in the early '60s when I was a competitor. And if we had an assembly like this, when I was a teacher back at Interboro, we would have had to stand in the aisles with shotguns in our hands to keep everybody in line. And I tell you what, I've got to give my compliments as a guest to Norristown High School, to the faculty, and also to the student body, just for the way you've acted and behaved today. It's fantastic, and it's... And it really gives me a warm feeling, that same warm feeling I had when I taught school back at Interboro for 6 years. What did I ever have in common with Norristown? It was Tom Pierantozzi, Coach Pierantozzi. He and I played pro ball together. So when you see Mr. Pierantozzi, tell him I said hi. Let me just lay this on you. I represent now the United States Football League and the Philadelphia Stars. One of my major responsibilities is producing and putting together the radio network. I do a lot of marketing and promotions, obviously, because I've played in two other pro football leagues, and I also do the color commentary for the Philadelphia Stars on radio. This year, if you are listening to Stars football, tune in Don Cannon, Sunny Radio 104, and you'll hear myself and Harry Donahue doing the play-by-play. But I just want to let this and lay this on you, and we'll be talking Stars football. I have a chance to talk to some of you people if you like. Bob and I at the lunch period. Just like to lay something on you that was given to me by my old favorite coach, Dick Vermeil, a proven winner here in Philadelphia. I had the unique opportunity to play for Vermeil in '76. Unique for me because I was 30 years old when I started playing pro ball in the National Football League, and I owe an awful lot to Dick Vermeil. And a lot of people, when I was trying out at that time, thought I was pretty crazy because it's never been done before in the National Football League, and I sort of wanted to prove these people wrong. You know, I wanted to show them that, hey, man, if you really want to do something bad enough, you just go for it, and hopefully along the way you'll get a couple breaks, but be prepared. So I run into this guy, Vermeil, who you all know how fired up the man is. I mean, he's just wired constantly. You know, he's tuned into action. And Dick had this sign that was in our locker room, and the sign went something like this. It said, an opportunity is worth to anyone exactly what their preparation enables them to make it. What your preparation enables you to make any opportunity in life, whether it's athletic, whether it's academic, whether it's VOTEC, or whatever it might be, all it is right on your shoulders, and that's where it lays. And you athletes, congratulations for what you've done and the commitment you've made to not only yourselves but to your team, and also the pride that you've brought to Norristown. And for the non-athletes and academicians and everybody else in the student body, congratulations to you too for the commitment you'll put forth in whatever you want to be, and that's that opportunity. Vermeil told me 3 things. He said, Vinny, he says, you're in a competitive world. When you get out of football, is going to be worse out there than what you've noticed here with draft picks and everybody else coming in. Speaking of the draft, I've got to tell you the United States Football League draft is going on right now, and they were talking about drafting Wayne Denson as their #1 pick for the Stars, you know, so somebody had to remind the coach that we can't draft high school football players, you know, so we'll have to wait until Wayne gets on to wherever he goes. Here's what it is. Ramil said, if you're going to go out and do something in a competitive world, you've got to know 3 things. First of all, you've got to have a game plan, some sort of a goal, know your opponent, who the heck's up there trying to beat you down, and I think third and most important is just be the best that you can be at whatever you want to be. And it's as simple as that. And when that happens, all your goals and all your dreams will probably come true. And I'll tell you one thing, and I'll leave it with this, and then we'll talk some Stars football, because we're really jacked up about the Philadelphia Stars and our championship team and what we've done in Philadelphia. And as I said, Bob and I will be around. We'll be in the lunch periods. Let me leave you with a prayer that was told us one time in the locker room that before we played the Dallas Cowboys. We never beat the Cowboys before. Never beat them. We didn't beat them that game either. We lost. But here's what this guy told us, and his name is Monsignor Sharkey. He was our team chaplain. And it wasn't so much a prayer. If anybody here is into literature or whatever, you'll probably recognize this. It was a poem, and it went like this. First of all, he said, guys, I know that you think you can beat the Cowboys. You know, we were all jacked up because we were going to have 70,000 people in the vet to watch us play, and it was a home game. We came close. We lost in the last 20 seconds because of a mental error. But the bottom line being, he told us this. He said, everybody thinks you're a bunch of dreamers. He said, let me tell you about dreams. And it said, hold fast to dreams, for if dreams die, life is like a broken winged bird that cannot fly. Now, I believe you're the Norristown Eagles. Is that right? Well, I think that applies to you. Hold fast to dreams, for if dreams die, life is a broken winged bird that cannot fly. So that's it for me. Hey, stay straight, stay in school, stay away from the drugs, keep yourself going in the right direction, and you'll be a winner all the way. Thank you very much, and we'll see you later on.